My name is Danielle Davis and I read, write, and roller skate in Los Angeles. Welcome to this writer's life where we peek into process. In fact, this episode is all about process. But before I get into that, I wanted to tell you something. I want to tell you about bowerbirds. Have you ever heard of them? They are these birds and they live in Australia and New Guinea, and they're known for making these amazing, incredible nests. They're really works of art. So they're really industrious and hardworking and always fine-tuning and creating these kind of structural nests that are also decorated in really cool ways. They use pebbles, berries, stones, feathers, sticks, all this stuff, and just incredible. And I'm telling you about bowerbirds because I believe that each of you, each of us, has a bowerbird. And it's essentially our writer's mind. And it might be in the back of your mind or sort of in your subconscious and you're not thinking about it, but it's always there. And that bowerbird, that writer's mind, is working and building and fine-tuning and creating and has all the stuff that you need to create your story. And then our job is to tune into it and to pay attention to it. So I'll talk more about that later. So now on to process. I'm going to give you the behind the scenes of the steps of my process in hopes that it helps you with your own process and developing your own writer's life. But process can be challenging for people because we often just see the final result, the outcome. We see the book on the shelf or the movie, or we see, somebody who's already written a poem or a story or created something. And we think, how in the world did they get to that? And how in the world will I get to that? Sometimes we just want to be finished already, right? We want to get to that end point and that outcome and not go through the steps. But here's the thing, process is really where it's at. Anything that you want to create is done through that process. And I think there's a lot of joy and a lot to be learned there. If you think about, okay, I want to eat a piece of chocolate cake. I don't think you want to have eaten it. I think you want to experience eating the chocolate cake, and that is process. So let's talk about the steps of process. One of the first things is to think about where you're going to write, when you're going to write, and how long you're going to write. So for me, my favorite place to write is here at my desk. Sometimes I write in a cafe or I jot something down when I'm out and about too. And in terms of when, my favorite time to write is in the afternoon. But if I'm deeply involved in a project, I'll just wake up and get to writing and write all the time that I can. In terms of how long, I usually set a goal, and that's 1 to 2 hours every afternoon. And sometimes, again, I might write way more than that, or I might not write at all, but that's the goal. So for you, it's figuring out what will work. Is there a cozy spot where you feel comfortable writing? Is there a place at the library? Is it at a desk? Do you like to sprawl out on the floor and write? And what about when can you write? Is there a time you can find in your schedule that works for you to write? And how long? I encourage you to write just for like 15 minutes. You can set a timer like this one. You can use a digital timer or someone's phone. You can also just look at the clock and see, okay, 15 minutes have gone by. What have I accomplished in that time? And that's how you start building something, by giving those little bits of time. Another part of process is tools. What do you need to write? I use a computer, but you certainly don't have to use a computer to be a writer. Also, really like my notebooks. I like to have one notebook for every project. I find that kind of fun and it organizes me. I also like to have a cup of tea at the ready because it's sort of comforting and feels like a reward. So what is it for you? Do you have a favorite pen or pencil or notebook? Is there a snack that feels like a companion for you while you're writing? Those are the tools that you need to get started. The next step of the process is brainstorming or pre-writing, which I'm sure you've heard of. For me, this is when those notebooks come into play. This is where you are just writing and dreaming and jotting down stuff. It can be chaotic or organized, whatever it is, to just let your mind go wild and go through the process of brainstorming, coming up with ideas, all the stuff that's gonna make a story later. This is where your bowerbird comes in. Something that's really important for my writing process in the pre-writing or brainstorming stage is to go on walks or hikes. And what happens is I'm walking and I'm thinking. and I'm thinking about what's bothering me, what I'm feeling, what I have to do, what I'm going to eat later. And then eventually as I'm walking, I'm done with thinking about all that. And guess what? The bowerbird starts to kind of talk and do its work. And there it is in the back of my mind, and I'm tuning into it. And it's giving me ideas and the tools and the decorations and the art that I need for my story. So it might be riding your bike, it might be listening to music, it might be drawing or doodling, it might be playing basketball or knitting, whatever it is that frees up the bowerbird to kind of come to your conscious mind and do that fine-tuning and creative work for you. And then the next step of the process is drafting, which I'm sure you've also heard of. And so this is when you're taking all those ideas and you're writing full sentences in your notebook, at a computer, wherever you like. And it's sometimes called the first draft, or the downdraft, or the sloppy copy. And this is where you just trust that you can keep writing and you're writing in complete sentences, but you're not worried about if you're going to change it later or what's going to happen. You're just doing it without any judgment or critique of what you're doing. That's not the time for it. Don't worry at all. Just get it down, let it out, trust that you can write it, and be part of that step of the process. The next step is revising and editing. So revising, which you've probably heard of, is when you focus on the big picture stuff. So does it make sense logically? I've got this draft. How is the story working? Is the plot where it needs to be? What about the characters? All of those big questions you can ask of your story. And then editing is the small stuff and kind of a final step where you're looking for the spelling and the grammar and how things flow. And you can revise and edit on your own first. Something that I like to do is I print out what I'm working on from my computer, and then I can see it with fresh eyes in a new way. And I also then can read it aloud to myself. So that's a pro tip I have for you, is to read aloud your work. And then you're going to hear things that you might not notice otherwise. Also, during revising and editing, you can enlist the help of others. So I have a writing group where we meet and we exchange pieces of our writing, we read them aloud, and then we offer supportive, constructive, helpful feedback in terms of what's really working and what might need some more attention. Sometimes I'll also enlist the help of an expert. So I might be writing about something, but I don't know a lot about that subject, which probably actually happens a lot. So I ask for an expert to read it over and see, am I portraying it correctly? Am I sort of getting this right? And sometimes I also just give my work to another writer to see if they'll read a whole manuscript and do me the really kind favor of weighing in on it. And I might do the same thing for them as a kind of trade. My hope for you is that maybe you have a trusted friend who also likes to write or doesn't, and they might have a fresh perspective on your work. You might give your writing to a trusted parent or relative who can give you that supportive, helpful critique that you're looking for and that feedback that's going to help you in a really kind, supportive way. And you might also give it to a teacher or somebody else like that who can weigh in on your story. And that final step is sharing. So I hope that if you feel comfortable and you have something completed, you will share it, because it's so important to celebrate your accomplishment. One way you can do that is you can give it to a friend or parent or teacher or relative who you trust to also celebrate it with you. You might submit it to your school newspaper or literary magazine if you have one. You could print off your own really simple zine and pass it out and distribute it. Or you could also gather a bunch of friends and have them share their work while you share yours. So maybe somebody has made something out of clay, somebody has a drawing, somebody has a poem, and you have your story or whatever you've written, and you can all share it together and celebrate it in a really fun way. Thank you for spending this time with me here on This Writer's Life. I hope that you'll leave a comment or question and join me and subscribe for future episodes.
Hello, my name is Melissa Daniels Rauterkus, and I am an assistant professor of English at the University of Southern California. I've been teaching literature and writing for about 15 years. And my advice is that writing begins with brainstorming. Create an idea notebook. Keep a pen handy. Jot down your ideas. Over time, look for recurring patterns and motifs. In this way, you can identify your next great idea.